Jonah Edward had $23.47 to his name when he walked into that diner with his daughter Anna. 8 months after his wife's death, the single father could barely afford 2 burgers. Anna asked for bacon on hers, just $3 more, but Jonah said no. Every dollar mattered when you had nothing. Then 2 men started attacking their waitress. Everyone watched and no one moved. Jonah knew he should stay out of it. He couldn't afford a hospital bill, couldn't risk leaving his daughter without a parent. These men were dangerous. Not my problem, he thought, staring at his plate. Then 7-year-old Anna looked at him with absolute faith and said, "Daddy, please help her." In that moment, Jonah had to choose, protect himself or protect a stranger. He stood up. He fought 2 dangerous men. He risked everything. The next day, he was found. Someone had been watching. Someone who saw a broke man do the right thing when it cost him everything. And that single choice changed both their lives forever. This is the story of what happened when courage met opportunity and why sometimes doing the right thing is the most valuable investment you'll ever make. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen connections that change lives, please like this video, comment your thoughts, and where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Arena. Your support keeps these powerful, true stories alive. Jonah Edwards' hands trembled slightly as he counted the crumpled bills on his kitchen counter for the 3rd time. $23.47. That was all that stood between him and payday, still 5 days away. "Daddy, are we going out today?" 7-year-old Anna stood in the doorway, her brown eyes, so achingly similar to her mother's, filled with hope. She wore the yellow sundress that Sarah had bought her last summer, now a bit short at the hem, but still Anna's favorite. Jonah's heart clenched. It had been 8 months since the car accident that took Sarah from them, 8 months of learning to braid hair with YouTube tutorials, 8 months of failing to fill the massive void in their small apartment. "Yeah, baby girl," Jonas said, forcing brightness into his voice. "Let's go get those burgers you've been talking about." Anna's face lit up like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, and for a moment, the weight pressing on Jonah's chest lifted slightly. He'd promised her last week, promised that when his overtime check came through, they'd go out for a real meal, just the 2 of them. But the overtime check had been smaller than expected, the electricity bill larger, and the car had needed new brake pads that couldn't wait. Still, a promise to Anna was sacred, even if it meant eating ramen for the rest of the week. "Really? Can I get a milkshake too?" Anna bounced on her toes. "We'll see what we can do," Jonas said, which they both knew meant probably not, but Anna was kind enough not to push. Jonah glanced at his reflection in the hallway mirror as they prepared to leave. At 34, he looked older, gray threading through his dark hair at the temples, lines etched around his eyes from too many sleepless nights. His shirt was clean but worn, ironed carefully that morning. Pride was one of the few things poverty hadn't stolen from him yet. The bus ride to Mel's diner took 20 minutes. Jonah held Anna's hand as they swayed with the vehicle's movement, watching the city slide past the grimy windows. They passed the restaurant where he'd proposed to Sarah, now converted into a vape shop. They passed the hospital where Anna was born, where Sarah had held their daughter for the first time and cried happy tears. They passed the intersection where everything ended. Jonah squeezed Anna's hand a little tighter. "Daddy, you're hurting me," Anna said softly. "Sorry, sweetheart." He loosened his grip, kissing the top of her head. Mel's diner sat on the corner of 5th and Morrison, wedged between a laundromat and a check-cashing place. Its neon sign flickered erratically, the EMLs dark and dead. But the prices were reasonable, the food was hot, and they didn't look at you funny when you asked for water instead of soda. A bell chimed as they entered. The dinner rush hadn't started yet. Only a handful of tables were occupied. A tired-looking waitress with blonde hair, pulled into a messy ponytail, glanced up from wiping down the counter. "Sit anywhere, Han," she called out. Jonah guided Anna to a booth near the window, away from the other patrons. The vinyl seat was patched with duct tape, and the table wobbled slightly, but Anna didn't seem to notice. She was too busy studying the laminated menu like it held the secrets of the universe. "Can I get the bacon cheeseburger?" she asked. Jonah scanned the prices. The bacon cheeseburger was $8.99. The regular burger was $5.99. He could get 2 regular burgers and still have money for the bus ride home. How about we both get the regular burgers, he suggested gently. They're really good here, big and juicy. Anna's face fell for just a second before she caught herself. Okay, Daddy. That sounds good. The waitress appeared at their table, order pad in hand. Up close, Jonah could see she was younger than he'd first thought, maybe mid-20s with kind eyes that looked as exhausted as he felt. Her name tag read Cassie. What can I get you folks? She asked. 2 regular burgers, please, Jonas said, both with fries and 2 glasses of water. You got it. Cassie smiled at Anna. How are you doing, sweetie? Good, Anna said shyly. I like your earrings. Cassie touched the small silver stars hanging from her ears. Thanks, honey. My little girl picked these out for me. She's about your age. You have a daughter? Anna perked up. Sure do. She's with her grandma today while I work. Cassie's smile grew warmer. I'll get those burgers right out for you. As Cassie walked away, Jonah watched Anna trace patterns on the condensation forming on her water glass. She was being so good, so understanding. She deserved bacon on her burger. She deserved milkshakes and toys and a childhood not defined by what they couldn't afford. She deserved her mother. Daddy. Anna's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Yeah, baby. Is Mommy proud of us? The question hit him like a physical blow. Jonah reached across the table and took his daughter's small hand in his. Every single day, Anna. She's so proud of you. You're brave and kind and smart, just like she was. I miss her. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped across the wobbly table, until Cassie returned with their food. The burgers were indeed big and juicy, the fries golden and hot. Anna's eyes widened with delight as she picked up her burger with both hands. For a few minutes, they simply ate, and Jonah let himself enjoy this small moment of normalcy. Anna chattered about school, about her friend Madison who could do a cartwheel, about the book they were reading in class. Jonah listened, truly listened, and felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. Then the bell above the door chimed again. 2 men entered, both in their late 20s, wearing stained work jackets and expressions that made Jonah's instincts prickle with warning. One was tall and broad, with a shaved head and a tattoo creeping up his neck. The other was shorter, wiry, with darting eyes that scanned the diner like a predator sizing up prey. They took a table near the back, away from the windows. Cassie approached them with her order pad and that same professional smile. Jonah forced his attention back to Anna, who was telling him about an upcoming school play. But he couldn't quite tune out the raised voices coming from the back of the diner. What do you mean you don't have the chicken fried steak? The tall one was saying, his voice aggressive. It's on the menu right here. I'm sorry, sir, Cassie said, her voice still patient. We ran out about an hour ago. But the pot roast is really good. I don't want a damn pot roast. The man's fist hit the table, making silverware jump. The other diners glanced over nervously. The cook, visible through the window to the kitchen, looked up from the grill but didn't move. Behind the counter, another waitress, older, heavy-set, suddenly became very interested in refilling salt shakers. Jonah's jaw tightened. He recognized the dynamic immediately. He'd grown up around men like this. Men who took their frustrations out on people who couldn't fight back, who found power in intimidating service workers and anyone else they perceived as beneath them. Let me check with the kitchen, Cassie was saying, her smile strained now. Maybe we have some in the back. You already said you were out. The shorter man stood up suddenly, knocking his chair backward. You think we're stupid? No, sir, Just what? Just trying to weasel out of doing your job. Anna had stopped talking. Her eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding at the back of the diner, her burger forgotten. It's okay, Jonah murmured to her. Just some rude customers. Finish your food, sweetheart. But it wasn't okay. The situation was escalating quickly. The tall man stood now too, looming over Cassie, who had taken a step back toward the kitchen. You know what? The tall one said, his voice dropping to something more dangerous than shouting. I think you need to learn some respect. He reached out and grabbed Cassie's wrist. Let go of me, Cassie said, trying to pull away. Fear flashed across her face. The diner had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, frozen in that terrible moment of decision. The moment when bystanders choose whether to remain bystanders. Jonah felt his body tensing, the old instincts rising. He'd been in the army, served 2 tours overseas before he'd met Sarah, and decided to build a different kind of life. He knew how to handle himself, knew how to defuse situations, knew when to step in. But he also knew what stepping in could mean. These men looked like trouble, the kind of trouble that didn't stay confined to a diner. The kind that might follow you home, that might remember your face, that might see you had a daughter and decide to make a point. And beyond the immediate danger, there was the practical reality. Jonah couldn't afford a hospital bill if things went badly. Couldn't afford a lawyer if things went worse. Couldn't afford to lose his job if he ended up arrested. Couldn't afford to leave Anna without a parent if something happened to him. He had responsibilities. He had a daughter who'd already lost one parent. She needed him whole, alive, present, and not playing hero in some rundown diner. The tall man twisted Cassie's wrist, making her cry out. Jonah looked down at his plate. Anna was staring at him, her eyes wide. Not my problem, he told himself. Someone else will call the cops. The manager will handle it. Not my problem. You're hurting me. Cassie's voice cracked. The shorter man laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Maybe that's the point, sweetheart. Jonah's hands clenched into fists under the table. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to move, to act, to do something. This was wrong. This was exactly the kind of thing Sarah would never forgive him for ignoring. Daddy, Anna's voice was small but clear. She wasn't looking at the men anymore. She was looking at him. And Jonah saw, in his daughter's eyes, a question being asked. A question about what kind of man her father was. A question about what mattered. A question about who we become when we think no one's watching except the people who matter most are always watching. He thought of Sarah, who'd volunteered at the women's shelter every Saturday, who'd once gotten between an angry man and his terrified girlfriend in a grocery store parking lot, who'd taught Anna that standing up for others wasn't optional. It was what good people did. He thought of all the times he'd told Anna to be brave, to help people, to do the right thing even when it was hard. And he thought of the man he wanted his daughter to remember him as. But before he could move, before he could make the choice that would define him, Anna's voice rang out across the diner, loud, clear, and heartbreaking in its desperate plea. Daddy, please help her. Time seemed to crystallize around those 4 words. Every person in the diner turned to look at the scruffy man in the worn shirt and his small daughter in the yellow sundress. Even the 2 men holding Cassie paused, their attention drawn by a child's voice cutting through the tension. Jonah looked at Anna, really looked at her, and saw in her face not fear, but faith, absolute faith that her daddy would do the right thing. That faith was more terrifying than any physical threat. He stood up. His chair scraped against the linoleum floor, the sound abnormally loud in the sudden silence. Let her go, Jonah said quietly, walking toward the back of the diner. The tall man smirked. Or what, hero? You gonna make me? Up close, Jonah could see the details he'd missed from across the room, the prison tattoos, the meth-mouth teeth on the shorter one, the way they both shifted their weight like fighters. These weren't just angry customers. They were predators who'd found prey. I'm asking nicely, Jonah said, keeping his voice calm. Let the waitress go, order your food, and we'll all forget this happened. You hear this guy, Derek? The shorter man grinned. Thinks he's some kind of white knight. Derek, the tall one, released Cassie's wrist and turned his full attention to Jonah. He had 6 inches and probably 50 pounds on him. Tell you what, hero, why don't you go back to your little girl and mind your own business? Unless you want her watching you get your ass kicked. The mention of Anna sent ice through Jonah's veins. His military training kicked in, his mind automatically cataloging exits, weapons, threats. The diner had 2 doors, front and back. The back one was partially blocked by these men. There were knives in the kitchen, a fire extinguisher on the wall. The salt shakers on the tables could be weapons in a pinch. But more importantly, his mind cataloged the cost. Anna was watching. Every second of this, Anna was watching. Cassie, Jonas said, not taking his eyes off Derek. Go to the kitchen. Call the police. Cassie didn't need to be told twice. She bolted for the kitchen door. "Now look what you did," the shorter man said, pulling something from his pocket. A knife, cheap but sharp enough. "We were just having a conversation." "Conversation's over," Jonas said. His heart hammered, but his voice stayed level. "You should leave before the cops get here." Derek laughed. "Oh, we'll leave. But first, I think you need a lesson in minding your own business." He swung. Jonah had been expecting it. He ducked under the punch, using Derek's momentum against him, guiding him into a table. Plates and silverware crashed to the floor. Somewhere behind him, Anna screamed. The shorter man with the knife lunged. Jonah grabbed a chair and used it as a shield, the knife blade embedding in the wooden seat. He twisted, wrenching the knife away, sending it skittering across the floor toward the kitchen. But there were two of them, and they weren't done. Derek recovered faster than Jonah expected, catching him with a punch to the ribs that drove the air from his lungs. The shorter man grabbed a ketchup bottle from a table and swung it like a club. Jonah blocked with his forearm, felt the bottle break against his arm, felt the sting of glass cutting skin. He couldn't let this continue. Not with Anna watching. Not with these men who might decide a little girl was a target too. He'd spent years training to fight, but he'd spent more years trying to be a better man than the one who fought. He'd promised Sarah he was done with violence. He'd promised himself he'd give Anna a father who solved problems with words, not fists. But some problems don't care about promises. Derek charged again. This time Jonah didn't dodge. He stepped into the attack, using a technique they drilled endlessly in the army. He caught Derek's arm, pivoted, and used the man's own weight to send him crashing into the counter. The impact was brutal. Derek dropped like his strings had been cut. The shorter man looked at his unconscious friend, then at Jonah, and apparently decided discretion was the better part of valor. He ran for the door, shoving past the elderly couple who'd been frozen at their table the whole time. Jonah stood in the wreckage of the fight, overturned tables, broken plates, his own arm bleeding from a dozen small cuts, breathing hard. His ribs screamed where Derek had hit him. His knuckles were split, and all he could think was, Anna saw all of that. He turned to look at his daughter. She stood by their booth, hands over her mouth, eyes huge. But not with fear, with something else. Something like awe. "Stay there, baby," Jonah managed to say. "It's okay. It's over." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Cassie emerged from the kitchen, phone in hand, looking at Jonah like he'd just materialized from thin air. "Are you okay?" she asked him, which struck Jonah as absurd considering she'd been the one in danger. "I'm fine," he said, though he wasn't sure that was true. "Are you?" "Because of you." Tears streamed down her face. "Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much." Other diners approached, now that the danger had passed. The cook came out of the kitchen. The older waitress who'd hidden behind the counter now appeared with a first aid kit. Everyone wanted to help, to thank him, to tell him how brave he was. But Jonah only cared about one person. He went to Anna, knelt down in front of her, and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he whispered into her hair. "You helped her," Anna said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "You helped her, Daddy." "Yeah, baby. I did. Mommy would be proud." Jonah squeezed his eyes shut, holding his daughter tighter. "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." The police arrived 3 minutes later, 2 officers who took statements and called an ambulance for Derek, who was regaining consciousness and groaning about his rights being violated. They wanted Jonah to go to the hospital too, get checked out, but he refused. He couldn't afford an ambulance ride, couldn't afford the ER. The cuts on his arm could be cleaned at home. One of the officers, a gray-haired veteran named Chun, pulled him aside while his partner dealt with Derek. "You got lucky," Chun said quietly. "Guy like that, with a history, could have gone real bad." "I know," Jonas said. "You military?" "Was long time ago." Chun nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Look, I need to be honest with you. These guys, we know them. Small-time dealers, mostly, but they run with a crew. You might have made some enemies today." Jonah's stomach dropped. "You mean they might come after me?" "Probably not," Chun said, but his tone wasn't reassuring. "Probably they'll decide you're not worth the trouble. But just keep your eyes open for a while, yeah? Maybe vary your routine, and if you see anything suspicious, call it in immediately." After the police left, the manager of Mel's Diner, a heavy-set man named George who Jonah had never seen before, came out of the office he'd apparently been hiding in during the whole incident. "Your meal's on the house," George said, as if that made up for not helping when Cassie was being assaulted. "And, thanks for handling that crazy situation." Jonah just nodded, too tired to point out that George's gratitude should have included actually stepping up when his employee was in danger. Cassie insisted on wrapping up 2 slices of apple pie for them for the road, she said, pressing the bag into Anna's hands with a tearful smile. "You two are special, really special." The bus ride home felt longer than usual. Anna sat pressed against Jonah's side, quieter than normal, processing what she'd witnessed. Jonah stared out the window at the darkening city and wondered if he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. He'd put himself in danger. He'd put Anna in danger if those men really did come looking for revenge. He'd violated every practical principle he'd adopted since Sarah's death. Keep your head down, don't make waves, protect what's yours above all else. And yet, when he replayed the moment in his mind, when he heard Anna's voice saying, "Daddy, please help her," he knew he'd make the same choice again. Some things mattered more than safety. Some things mattered more than practicality. Integrity, he was learning, was expensive. Their apartment felt especially small and shabby when they got home. Jonah cleaned his cuts at the kitchen sink while Anna watched from the doorway. Most of them were superficial. The glass had looked worse than it was. He'd have some bruises tomorrow, and his ribs would hurt for a week, but nothing was broken. "Daddy," Anna said as he wrapped gauze around his forearm. "Yeah, baby? Were you scared?" Jonah could have lied, could have told her heroes aren't scared, that doing the right thing is always easy if you're brave enough. But he thought about the world he wanted Anna to grow up in, the lessons that would actually serve her. Terrified, he admitted, "The whole time I was scared, but you did it anyway." "But I did it anyway." Anna thought about this for a long moment. "Because it was right?" "Because it was right," Jonah confirmed. "And because you asked me to. And because I want you to know that when people need help, we help. Even when it's scary. Even when it costs us something. That's what good people do." Anna crossed the kitchen and hugged him carefully, avoiding his injuries. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in the world." They ate their apple pie for dinner. Their real dinner had been abandoned at the diner, and Jonah tucked Anna into bed with her favorite stuffed rabbit. He read her 3 chapters of Charlotte's Web, doing different voices for each character until she giggled, and some of the tension from earlier finally left her small body. "Daddy," she murmured, half asleep. You're a hero, like Mommy was." Jonah's throat tightened. He kissed her forehead. "Sleep tight, baby girl." He sat up late that night, ice on his ribs, going over their finances in the dim light of the kitchen. The confrontation at the diner had shaken something loose in him, a realization that he'd been so focused on day-to-day survival that he'd lost sight of what he was surviving for. Anna needed more than just food and shelter. She needed a father who showed her how to live with courage and integrity. She needed a father who'd teach her that doing the right thing mattered, especially when it was hard. But integrity didn't pay the bills. Courage didn't put food on the table, and the growing suspicion that he'd put Anna in potential danger gnawed at him like a physical ache. He'd protected a stranger. Had he failed to protect his daughter in the process? Sleep came late and brought dreams of Sarah, shaking her head in that way she had when he was overthinking everything. "You did the right thing," dreams Sarah said. "Now stop being so dramatic about it." He woke to Anna, singing in her room, some song from school about birds and sunshine, and decided that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Jonah dropped Anna at school the next morning with extra tight hugs and extra serious reminders to stay with her teachers, not to talk to strangers, to call him if anything seemed wrong. Anna tolerated his anxiety with the patience of a child who's learned that sometimes parents need reassurance more than kids do. Work was a warehouse job, loading and unloading trucks for a distribution company. It paid barely above minimum wage, offered no benefits, and treated its employees as interchangeable units of labor. But it was steady, and steady was something Jonah couldn't afford to lose. His supervisor, a perpetually angry man named Rick, took one look at the bandages on Jonah's arm and the careful way he moved his ribs and immediately started in. "The hell happened to you, Edward?" "Accident," Jonah said. "I'm fine. Won't affect my work." "Better not. We're already short-staffed." Jonah spent the morning hauling boxes, each movement a reminder of yesterday's fight. His coworkers noticed, but didn't ask. They all had their own problems, their own struggles. One guy showed up drunk most days. Another was fighting a custody battle that was slowly destroying him. In a place like this, everyone carried wounds, visible or otherwise. During lunch break, Jonah sat in his car, a 15-year-old Honda, with a cracked windshield and an odometer showing 180,000 miles, and ate the peanut butter sandwich he'd packed. He allowed himself these 30 minutes to just be tired, to acknowledge the pain in his ribs and the worry in his mind. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Edward?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "My name is Patricia Holbrook. I'm calling from Westfield Industries. Do you have a moment?" Jonah's first thought was debt collectors. His second was a scam. "I'm sorry, who?" "Westfield Industries. We're a manufacturing and technology company based here in the city. I'm the executive assistant to James Westfield, our CEO. Mr. Westfield would very much like to meet with you. Would you be available this afternoon?" "I think you have the wrong person," Jonah said slowly. "Jonah Edward? Lives at 2847 Maple Street, apartment 4B, father of Anna Edward." A chill ran down Jonah's spine. "How do you know where I live?" "Mr. Westfield has his sources," Patricia said, and there was something almost apologetic in her tone. "I realize this must seem strange, but I assure you, this is legitimate. Mr. Westfield witnessed something yesterday that impressed him greatly, and he'd like to discuss a potential opportunity with you." "Witnessed what?" "Perhaps it's better if you discuss that with Mr. Westfield directly. Could you meet him at 4 p.m. today? I could send a car for you." Jonah's mind raced. Witnessed something yesterday. The diner, someone had seen what happened at the diner. But why would a CEO care about a fight in a rundown restaurant? "I work until 5, Jonah said cautiously. "If you provide me with your supervisor's contact information, we can arrange for you to leave early. You'll be compensated for the lost time, of course." Everything about this felt surreal. CEOs didn't call random warehouse workers. They didn't offer to send cars and compensate for lost wages. Either this was an elaborate scam, or something impossible was happening. "Can I ask what this is about?" Jonah tried again. "Mr. Westfield prefers to discuss it in person, but I can tell you that it's a legitimate offer, Mr. Edward. An opportunity that could significantly improve your circumstances. All we're asking for is an hour of your time." Jonah thought about saying no. Thought about hanging up and going back to his sandwich and his predictable, difficult, but comprehensible life. But he also thought about Anna, about the bills on his counter, about the way his car made a concerning noise every time he shifted into third gear, and he thought about how he'd told Anna that doing the right thing mattered, even when it was hard. Maybe sometimes the hard thing was accepting help when it was offered, even if you didn't understand why. "Okay," he said. 4 o'clock. "Where?" The car that picked Jonah up from the warehouse at 3:30 was not what he expected. He'd imagined maybe a town car, something professional but modest. Instead, a black Mercedes sedan pulled up, driven by a man in an actual chauffeur's uniform. Rick had been furious about Jonah leaving early, even after Patricia called and somehow convinced him. As Jonah walked out to the Mercedes, he could feel Rick's glare burning into his back, along with the stares of his co-workers. "Mr. Edward?" the driver asked, opening the rear door. "That's me," Jonah said, feeling absurdly underdressed in his warehouse uniform and work boots. The interior of the car was leather and wood and the subtle scent of expensive cologne. Jonah sat stiffly, afraid to touch anything, as they glided through afternoon traffic toward downtown. Westfield Industries occupied floors 20 through 30 of one of the city's tallest buildings. The lobby was all marble and steel, with abstract sculptures that probably cost more than Jonah made in a year. A security guard directed him to the executive elevators, where Patricia Holbrook was waiting. She was exactly what her voice suggested: professional, competent, probably in her 50s, with gray streak hair and a perfect bun and a pantsuit that whispered wealth. "Mr. Edward, thank you so much for coming." She shook his hand with a firm grip. Mr. Westfield is excited to meet you. The elevator ride to the 30th floor took less than a minute, but felt much longer. Patricia made pleasant small talk about the weather, seemingly oblivious to Jonah's growing anxiety. The 30th floor was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city, art on the walls that looked museum quality, thick carpet that swallowed sound. Patricia led him through a maze of offices where people in expensive clothes typed on expensive computers and conducted expensive-sounding business. Finally, they reached a corner office. Patricia knocked once, then opened the door. "Mr. Westfield, Jonah Edward is here." The man who stood up from behind a massive desk was not what Jonah expected. For some reason, he'd imagined someone older, more corporate, a gray-haired titan in a power suit. Instead, James Westfield looked to be in his early 40s, with sandy hair, warm brown eyes, and a casual demeanor that seemed at odds with his surroundings. He wore slacks and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No tie. "Jonah." He came around the desk with an outstretched hand and a genuine smile. "Thank you so much for coming. Please sit down. Can Patricia get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine," Jonah said, taking the offered chair. It was probably the most comfortable chair he'd ever sat in. Patricia excused herself, closing the door softly. James Westfield settled into the chair beside Jonah rather than behind his desk, a subtle choice that made the conversation feel less like a formal meeting and more like two people talking. "I imagine you're wondering what this is all about," James said. "The thought crossed my mind," Jonah admitted. James laughed. "Fair enough. Let me start by introducing myself properly. I'm James Westfield. I founded this company 12 years ago. We manufacture components for medical devices and telecommunications equipment. We employ about 2,000 people and generate around $400 million in annual revenue. I'm telling you this not to brag, but to establish that I'm not some random person wasting your time." Jonah nodded, still completely lost. "Yesterday," James continued, "I was at Mel's Diner. I go there sometimes when I want to think without people recognizing me or bothering me about work. I was sitting in a booth near the back, working on a problem, barely paying attention to my surroundings. Realization began to dawn. You were there." "I was there," James confirmed. "I saw two men harassing a waitress. I saw them grab her, and I sat there, frozen, trying to convince myself it wasn't my problem, that someone else would handle it, that I had too much to risk getting involved." He paused, and Jonah saw genuine shame in his eyes. "And then I saw a man in a worn shirt and his young daughter sitting near the window. I saw that man wrestle with the same decision I was wrestling with. I could see it on his face, and I saw his daughter look at him and say, 'Daddy, please help her.'" Jonah felt heat rise to his face. "You heard that." "I heard it, and I watched you stand up. I watched you walk over to two dangerous men and put yourself in harm's way to protect a complete stranger. I watched you fight, and you clearly know how to fight with just enough force to stop the threat without seriously hurting anyone. I watched you comfort your daughter afterward and check on the waitress before you checked on yourself." James leaned forward, his expression intense. "And I realized I was watching something rare. I was watching integrity in action. Real, costly, dangerous integrity. The kind that's becoming extinct in our world." Jonah didn't know what to say to that. "Do you know what I did?" James continued. "I hid in my booth until it was over. Then I slipped out the back door before the police arrived because I didn't want to get involved in the investigation. I went back to my office and sat in this chair and thought about what kind of man I am." He stood up, pacing to the window. "I'm a man who talks a big game about values and ethics. I built a company culture around integrity. I tell my employees to do the right thing even when it's hard, and when I had a chance to practice what I preach, I failed. Spectacularly. Mr. Westfield, James, please." "James," Jonah said carefully, "you're not a bad person for being scared. Those guys were dangerous. You didn't know what would happen. Neither did you, but you stood up anyway. Do you know why?" Jonah thought about Anna's face, about the question in her eyes. "Because my daughter was watching." "Exactly, and do you know why that matters?" James turned from the window. "Because it means you understand something fundamental that most people have forgotten. We teach more through our actions than our words. Your daughter learned more about character in those 3 minutes than she could learn from 1,000 lectures. He returned to his seat. I've spent the last 12 years building this company, Jonah, making money, creating jobs, all good things, but I've lost sight of what really matters. Yesterday, a man with significantly more to lose than me showed me what courage looks like, and I want to do something about that. I appreciate that, Jonah said slowly, but I still don't understand why I'm here. James smiled. Because I want to offer you a job. Jonah blinked. A job. Head of security. For all of Westfield Industries. It's a significant position. You'd be responsible for physical security across our facilities, personnel vetting, crisis management, and security protocol development. You'd have a team of 20 people reporting to you. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Mr. Westfield, James, I'm not qualified for that. I'm a warehouse worker. I did 2 tours in the Army 10 years ago, but I don't have security certifications or management experience or... You have something better, James interrupted. You have judgment. You have the ability to make hard decisions under pressure. You have integrity that doesn't disappear when it becomes inconvenient. Those things can't be taught. But the salary is $120,000 a year plus benefits. Full health insurance, dental, vision, life insurance, retirement matching, 3 weeks paid vacation, company car, budget for professional development if you want to get security certifications. Jonah couldn't speak. $120,000. He currently made $32,000. Health insurance alone would save him hundreds of dollars a month. I know this is overwhelming, James said gently. Take some time to think about it. But Jonah, I watched you risk everything for a stranger. I'm not risking anything by betting on you. I'm making the safest investment I could make, investing in someone who I've seen demonstrate real character when it counted. Why? Jonah managed to ask. Why do this? James was quiet for a moment. Because yesterday, I learned something about myself that I didn't like. And I learned something about what's possible when people choose to be better than their circumstances demand. You could have walked away. Every practical consideration told you to walk away. But you didn't because your daughter needed to see you be the man you want her to remember. He smiled, and there was something vulnerable in it. I have 2 daughters. They're in middle school now, and I thought about what I want them to learn from me, what I want them to remember about their father. And I realized that if I didn't do something significant to honor what I witnessed yesterday, then I would be teaching them that witnessing integrity doesn't require responding with integrity, that having resources doesn't create responsibility to use them well. James stood and extended his hand again. So this isn't charity, Jonah. This is me trying to be the kind of man I saw you being yesterday. This is me trying to build the kind of company where that kind of character is recognized and rewarded. Will you at least think about it? Jonah stood on shaky legs and shook James Westfield's hand. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Patricia will give you her card. Call her when you've made a decision. James paused. And Jonah? Thank you for reminding me what matters. Jonah was in a daze as he left the Westfield Industries building. Patricia had indeed given him her card, along with a folder containing a formal job offer, benefits information, and a personal note from James reiterating everything they discussed. The Mercedes returned him to the warehouse, where Rick immediately started hassling him about what was so important, but Jonah barely heard him. His mind was spinning, trying to process what had just happened. $120,000 a year, health insurance, a company car. It was more than money. It was stability. It was the ability to breathe without constantly doing financial arithmetic in his head. It was ballet lessons for Anna if she wanted them, piano lessons, art classes, all the things he'd been unable to give her. But more than that, it was validation. Someone had seen him at his most vulnerable moment, had seen him make a hard choice, and had decided that choice meant something. He picked Anna up from after-school care, $15 a day he could barely afford, and she immediately noticed something was different. Did something happen, Daddy? She asked as they walked to the bus stop. Maybe, Jonas said. Something kind of crazy. Good crazy or bad crazy? He thought about that. I think good crazy. We'll see. At home, after making dinner, spaghetti with Jared's sauce, garlic bread, the last of the frozen vegetables, Jonas sat Anna down at their wobbly kitchen table. I need to tell you something, he said. Anna put down her fork, her expression serious. Are we in trouble? Because of yesterday? No, baby. The opposite of trouble. He took a breath. Remember the diner yesterday? It turns out someone else was there. A man named Mr. Westfield. He saw what happened. Is he mad at you? No. Jonah smiled. He was impressed. He offered me a job. A really good job. Anna's eyes widened. Really? What kind of job? Head of security for his company. It's a big company, and it would mean a lot more money, Anna. Enough that we wouldn't have to worry so much. Enough that you could do activities you want to do. Enough that we could maybe move to a bigger apartment someday. Would you have to go away? Anna asked, and the fear in her voice broke his heart. No, baby. I'd still be here every day. Same as now, just with a different job. Then why do you sound worried? Jonah marveled, not for the first time, at his daughter's perceptiveness. Because I'm not sure I deserve this. Because it feels too good to be true. Because you did the right thing and something good happened? Anna asked. Jonah looked at his 7-year-old daughter and felt humbled. Yeah, I guess that's it. Mommy always said good things happen to good people, Anna said. Maybe she was right. Maybe she was sweetheart. I think you should take the job, Anna declared. Because you're really good at protecting people. You protected Cassie. You protect me every day. Mr. Westfield is smart and wants you to protect his company. Jonah pulled Anna into a hug, pressing his face into her hair. What did you get so wise? I learned from my daddy, she said simply. That night, after Anna was asleep, Jonah sat at the kitchen table with the folder from Westfield Industries spread in front of him. He read through everything 3 times, looking for the catch, the fine print, the hidden trap. There wasn't one. It was exactly what James had said. A genuine offer, with generous terms, based on nothing more than witnessing a moment of decision. He thought about calling the number on Patricia's card right then, at 11 p.m., just to accept before this opportunity could evaporate. But something made him pause. Instead, he found himself opening his laptop, a 5-year-old machine that took 3 minutes to boot up, and searching for information about Westfield Industries. What he found reassured him. The company had excellent reviews from employees. James Westfield himself had been featured in several articles about ethical business practices and community investment. There were no scandals, no red flags, nothing to suggest this was anything other than what it appeared to be. Finally, Jonah opened the file where he kept photos of Sarah. He scrolled through pictures of their wedding, of her pregnant with Anna, of the 3 of them at the park on a sunny Sunday afternoon 3 weeks before the accident. What do you think? He asked her image. Is this okay? Am I allowed to catch a break? Dreamed Sarah from a night before reappeared in his mind, shaking her head at his tendency to overthink. Take the job, Jonah, she seemed to say. Give Anna the life we dreamed about. Stop punishing yourself for still being here. He closed the laptop and picked up his phone. It was late, but he had a feeling Patricia Holbrook was the kind of person who checked her email at all hours. He typed carefully, Ms. Holbrook, please tell Mr. Westfield I accept his offer. I'm honored by his confidence in me and will work hard to earn it. Jonah Edward. He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then sat in the dark kitchen, feeling the weight of the last 8 months, the grief, the struggle, the fear begin to lift. Jonah arrived at Mel's Diner at noon on a Saturday, holding Anna's hand. She wore a new dress, her choice, purchased without needing to check the price tag first. Jonah wore slacks and a polo shirt with the Westfield Industries logo embroidered on the chest. Cassie spotted them immediately and rushed over, her face lighting up. Jonah, Anna, I was so happy when you called. She hugged them both. Let me get you the best table. The diner had changed since that day, 6 months ago. New booths, fresh paint, updated menu. George, the manager, had been replaced by someone competent, and the security system had been upgraded. Jonah knew because he'd recommended the security company and personally reviewed their proposal. One of the perks of his new position was knowing people who knew people. They settled into a booth, not the one from that day, that felt too strange, and Cassie brought menus even though they knew what they wanted. How's your daughter? Anna asked. She's great. Cassie pulled out her phone to show pictures. 2nd grade this year. She's doing so well. Anna's in 2nd grade too, Jonas said, smiling at the connection his daughter had made with this woman they barely knew, but whose life they'd intersected with in such a significant way. "I know," Cassie said. "I remember everything from that day." After they ordered bacon cheeseburgers for both of them, with milkshakes, because they could, Jonah watched Anna color on the kids' menu and marveled at how much had changed. The job at Westfield Industries had been challenging but rewarding. He'd brought skills from his military service he'd forgotten he had, combined with a willingness to learn and a work ethic that impressed everyone around him. James Westfield had been true to his word about every aspect of the position, and had become something like a friend in the months since. They'd moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in a better neighborhood. Anna was in a better school. They had health insurance, savings, and stability. Jonah had even started therapy to work through his grief over Sarah's death, something he'd wanted to do for months but couldn't afford. But more than the material improvements, something had shifted internally. Jonah had spent so long believing that keeping his head down and just surviving was the best he could do. That protecting Anna meant avoiding risk at all costs. That doing the right thing was a luxury for people with more cushion than he had. That day at the diner had taught them both that character wasn't something you put on hold until circumstances improved. It was something you practiced, especially when circumstances were hard, and sometimes, though not always, the universe noticed and responded in kind. "Daddy," Anna said, looking up from her coloring. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you helped Cassie." "Me too, baby. Me too." Their food arrived, and they ate and talked about school and work and the movie they were going to see that afternoon, just a father and daughter enjoying a meal together without the weight of poverty pressing down on every moment. And Jonah thought about James Westfield in his booth that day, watching and learning. Thought about how one choice can ripple outward in ways you can't predict. Thought about how sometimes the hard thing and the right thing are the same thing, and how doing it anyway is what separates the life we have from the life we wish we had. Before they left, Jonah pressed an envelope into Cassie's hand. "What's this?" she asked. "College fund," he said simply. "For your daughter. It's not much, but it's a start." Cassie's eyes filled with tears. "Jonah, you don't have to." "I know, but I want to. You deserve help too. We all do." As they walked out of Mel's diner into the bright afternoon sunshine, Anna slipped her hand into his. "Daddy," she said. Mommy would be really, really proud of you." Jonah squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of those words settle into his chest like a warm light. "She'd be proud of both of us, Anna. We're doing okay. We're going to be okay." And for the first time since Sarah's death, he believed it completely. Above them, the sky was cloudless and blue, full of possibility. Behind them, the bell above Mel's door chimed as other customers entered, seeking simple meals and small moments of connection. Ahead of them, the city stretched out, still full of struggle and hardship, but also full of people making choices, small and large, that defined who they were becoming. Jonah Edward walked forward into his life with his daughter at his side, carrying with him the knowledge that doing the right thing, even when it was terrifying, even when it cost something, even when every practical consideration argued against it, was never a mistake. Sometimes, it was the only thing that saved us. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena, because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were in the eatery to avoid the fight? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? We'd love to hear your story.